1 month later, the last Velker ship left Earth's atmosphere. Hannah stood on the same rooftop where she had watched them arrive. Taiho stood beside her, just as he had on that first day. But everything else was different now. The city behind them was damaged, but not destroyed. Buildings had holes from energy weapons. Streets were cracked and broken. But people were walking through them again. Children were playing in the parks. The sound of construction mixed with the sound of laughter. "They are really leaving," Taiho said. He could not believe it. After everything that had happened, it seemed like a dream. Hana watched the massive ships rise through the clouds and disappear into the purple sky. She did not feel happy. She felt tired. So very tired. "They will come back," she said quietly. "You think so?" "Maybe. Maybe not. But if they do, we will be ready." All around the world, the same scene was playing out. In every city and every country, humans watched their invaders retreat. Some cheered. Some cried. Some fell to their knees and prayed to whatever gods they believed in. The war had lasted 32 days. Millions had died. Entire cities had been destroyed. But humanity had survived. More than survived. They had won. Far above Earth, in the main command ship, Commander Rock was writing his final report. It would be sent to the Velker Emperor. It would explain what had happened and why. It would change the way the Empire viewed humans forever. He had been writing for hours. His 4 hands were cramped and his old eyes were burning. But he had to get it right. Future generations of Velker needed to understand. He read his words one more time. "The invasion of Earth has failed. I take full responsibility for this failure. Our losses are significant. Over 300,000 soldiers dead. 47 ships destroyed. 8 commanders killed in action, including 5 members of the elite guard. The humans call this planet their home. They call themselves its protectors. We thought these were just words. We were wrong. Our battle theory was based on 50 years of observation. We studied their wars and their weapons and their tactics. We believed we understood them. We did not. We understood how humans fight in organized groups. We did not understand how they fight as individuals. We understood their fear. We did not understand their courage. We understood their weakness. We did not understand their strength. The woman who destroyed our invasion was not a general or a leader. She was an ordinary human with 2 primitive weapons. But she was not ordinary at all. She represented something we had never seen before. Something our models could not predict. Humans are not like the other species we have conquered. When they are afraid, they do not break. They become more dangerous. When they are losing, they do not surrender. They fight harder. When they have nothing left, they become unstoppable. I recommend a full review of all tactical data related to humans. I recommend the creation of a new category in our threat assessment systems. I recommend that Earth be classified as a forbidden target for future invasions. Most importantly, I recommend a new first rule for any species that encounters humans. Never underestimate a human with something to protect, especially one who carries ancient weapons by choice. The primitiveness of their tools does not reflect the sophistication of their will. Rock signed the report and sent it. Then he sat back in his chair and closed his eyes. He thought about the woman with the revolvers. In all his years of conquest, he had never met a warrior like her. She had been outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in every way that could be measured. And she had won anyway. Why? Because she had something his soldiers did not have. Something no amount of technology could create. She had a reason to fight that was bigger than her own life. Back on Earth, Hannah had returned to her apartment. It was damaged, but still standing. The walls had holes and the windows were broken, but her bed was intact. She lay down and stared at the ceiling. Her revolvers were on the table beside her. They were her grandfather's guns. His hands had held them. His eyes had looked down their barrels. Now they carried the weight of an entire world. That she was not a hero. She did not feel like one. She was just a woman who had refused to let her home be taken. A woman who had protected her brother and her neighbors and her people. Taiho knocked on the door and came in. He was carrying 2 cups of tea. He sat down beside her and handed her one. "The news is calling you the savior of Earth," he said. Hana laughed. It was a tired laugh, but it was real. "I am just someone who did not know when to quit. That is what makes you special." She sipped her tea. It was warm and familiar. It tasted like home. "What will you do now?" Taiho asked. Hana thought about the question. For 10 years, she had been a soldier. Then for 5 years, she had tried to be normal. Now she was something else. Something she did not have a name for. "I will rest," she said finally. "Then I will train others. We cannot depend on one person next time. We need an army of people who fight like me. People who do not follow the rules of war. A school for fighters who use old weapons? Something like that. The aliens will tell stories about what happened here. Other species will hear those stories. We need to make sure that when they come, we are ready." Taiho nodded. He understood. The war was over, but the work was just beginning. That night, Hana dreamed about her grandfather. He was standing in a field of flowers, holding his revolvers. He was smiling at her. "I am proud of you," he said in the dream. "You have done what I always hoped you would do. You have protected our family. You have protected our home." "I was so scared," she told him. "Of course you were scared. Only fools feel no fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that something else is more important than fear." He handed her the revolvers in the dream, just as he had in real life so many years ago. "These are yours now," he said. "Use them wisely. Use them well." Hana woke up with tears on her face. The sun was rising over Seoul. Through the broken window, she could see people walking in the streets. Normal people living normal lives. That was what she had fought for. That was what she would continue to fight for. She got out of bed and picked up her revolvers. She checked them carefully, as she always did. Then she holstered them and walked outside. Taiho was waiting for her. So were others. Men and women who wanted to learn, who wanted to be ready. "Are you going to teach us?" a young woman asked. She looked nervous but determined. Hana smiled. "Yes, I am going to teach you everything I know. How to shoot, how to move, how to think. But most importantly, I am going to teach you why we fight." "Why do we fight?" the young woman asked. Hana looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, among the stars, the Valkyr were retreating. They were rewriting their battle theories. They were creating new rules about humans, but the real rule was simple. Simpler than anything their computers could calculate. "We fight because this is our home," Hana said. "We fight because we have people we love. We fight because giving up is not in our nature. We fight because when everything else fails, when all the technology and all the weapons and all the theories collapse, there is still one thing left." She drew one revolver and held it up to the light. "The human will to survive. And that, my students, is something no one can ever take from us." The students nodded. The lesson had begun. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, a new entry was added to the galactic database. A warning to all species who might think about invading the small blue planet called Earth. Do not go there. Do not even try. The humans are waiting. And they are not afraid. 3 days had passed since the invasion began. The Valkyr had expected victory in hours. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a nightmare they could not understand. It had started with one woman in Seoul, but it had spread like fire through dry grass. Stories about Hannah traveled fast. People hiding in basements heard about her from survivors. People in other cities heard about her through broken radio signals. A woman with 2 revolvers. A woman who could not be killed. A woman who made the invaders afraid. The stories gave people hope. And hope was the most dangerous weapon of all. In Seoul, Taiho had grown his small resistance into something larger. What started as 200 people had become 2,000. Then 10,000. They hid during the day and fought at night. They used the alien weapons they had captured. They set traps in buildings and streets. They made every corner of the city dangerous. The Vulcar soldiers began to refuse orders. Why should they patrol streets where death waited behind every shadow? Why should they enter buildings that might explode? Their battle theory had told them this would be easy. The theory had lied. Commander Rock watched the situation grow worse every hour. Reports came from all over Earth. The same thing was happening everywhere. Humans were not surrendering. They were not breaking. They were fighting back in ways the Vulcar had never seen before. In New York, factory workers had built weapons from pipes and chemicals. In Tokyo, former soldiers had organized into deadly strike teams. In London, ordinary citizens were hiding resistance fighters in their homes and giving false information to alien patrols. In Cairo, children were throwing rocks at Vulcar soldiers while adults attacked from behind. The battle theory had no answer for any of this. "We need to retreat," Vex said during an emergency war council meeting. "We have lost 30,000 soldiers in 3 days. At this rate, we will lose our entire invasion force within a month. Retreat?" Bal was angry. The Vulcar Empire does not retreat. We have conquered 37 planets. We do not run from primitives. "These primitives are killing us," Vec replied. "Every day we lose more soldiers. Every day they get stronger. This is not what our theory predicted." Rock sat in silence, listening to them argue. He was watching the screens again. They showed Hana leading a group of fighters through the streets of Seoul. She was not alone anymore. Taiho was beside her, carrying an alien rifle. Behind them were hundreds of others. The woman who had started as one person was now an army. "Our theory was wrong," Rock said finally. Everyone stopped talking and looked at him. "We studied human warfare. We analyzed their battles and their strategies. But we did not understand humans themselves." "What do you mean?" Bal asked. "We thought fear would break them. Fear has made them stronger. We thought superior technology would make them surrender. It has made them more creative. We thought our predictions were perfect. But humans do not follow predictions." He pointed at the screen showing Hannah. "Look at her. 3 days ago, she was one person with 2 primitive weapons. Now she commands thousands. How? Why? Our computers cannot explain it." The War Council was silent. "Humans have something we did not measure," Rock continued. "Something our scientists could not put in their models. They call it many names. Love, hope, courage, pride. These are not just words to them. These are forces as powerful as any weapon." In Seoul, the final battle was beginning. Hana and Taiho had planned this attack for 2 days. They had gathered every fighter they could find. They had collected every weapon. They had studied the Vulcar Command Center in the heart of the city. Tonight, they would take it. "Are you sure about this?" Taiho asked his sister. They were hiding in a building near the command center. Outside, alien guards patrolled in tight formations. "No," Hana admitted. "But being sure is not the point. Doing what needs to be done is the point." Taiho nodded. He had learned a lot from his sister in the past 3 days. He had learned that courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting despite the fear. He had learned that one person could make a difference. And he had learned that family was worth fighting for. When this is over, he said, I want to go back to teaching. I miss my students. Hannah smiled. Then let us finish this so you can go back to them. The attack began at midnight. Human fighters emerged from every direction. They poured out of buildings and tunnels and hiding spots the aliens had never found. They attacked with alien weapons and human weapons and anything else they could use. Hannah and Taiho led the main assault on the command center. The guards fought hard. They were trained soldiers with advanced weapons. But they were fighting humans who had nothing left to lose. Humans who had watched friends and family die. Humans who were tired of being afraid. Hannah moved through the battle like a force of nature. Her revolvers fired again and again. Every shot found its target. Taiho stayed close to her, covering her with his rifle when she reloaded. They reached the doors of the command center. Inside were the most important Velker officers on Earth. If they fell, the invasion would lose its leadership. Together, Hannah said to her brother. Together, he agreed. They kicked down the door and entered. The room was large and filled with screens showing the chaos outside. 20 Velker officers stood with weapons drawn. They had nowhere to run. This was their last stand. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the lead officer spoke. You cannot win. Even if you kill us, more ships will come. The Empire will send a larger fleet. You will be crushed. Hannah walked forward slowly. The officers raised their weapons, but she did not stop. Maybe, she said. Maybe you will send more ships. Maybe you will send 1,000 fleets. It does not matter. Why? The officers seemed genuinely confused. Because now you know what humans are capable of. Now you know that your theories mean nothing. Now you know that there is no price too high for us to pay for our freedom. She raised both revolvers. And most importantly, now you know that when you come back, we will be waiting. Every man, woman, and child on this planet. Waiting for you. The officer's 4 arms were shaking. You are insane. No, Hannah said. We are human. That is something your empire never understood. The battle was over in seconds. None of the officers survived. When Hannah and Taiho walked out of the command center, the sun was rising. Human fighters were cheering. Captured alien soldiers were on their knees, with their hands behind their heads. The streets that had been filled with death and fear were now filled with something else. Victory. But Hannah knew this was only one battle. The war was not over. The Velker still held most of Earth. Their ships still filled the sky. There was so much more fighting to do. She looked at her brother. He was covered in dust and blood, but he was smiling. What now? He asked. Hannah looked up at the alien ships hovering above the city. They were pulling back, rising higher into the sky, retreating from Seoul. Now we do it again, she said. City by city, country by country, until they are all gone. She holstered her revolvers and started walking toward the next battle. Taiho followed. Behind them, thousands of fighters fell into step. The invasion had begun with the Velker expecting easy victory. It would end with them learning the hardest lesson in the universe. Never underestimate a human with something to protect. Hannah moved through the burning streets of Seoul like a ghost. Her eyes saw everything. Her body responded before her mind could think. This was what 10 years of training had given her. This was what war had carved into her bones. The aliens were everywhere. They walked in groups of 10 or 20, searching buildings and shooting anyone who resisted. Their blue energy weapons made a strange sound when they fired, like glass breaking underwater. Hannah had learned to hate that sound in the past 2 hours. She had also learned how to make it stop. She turned a corner and found herself facing 8 Velker soldiers. They were standing in front of a school. Inside, she could hear children crying. A teacher was trying to keep them calm. The aliens were preparing to enter. Hannah did not wait. Her hands moved. 8 shots. 8 bodies falling. The whole thing took less than 2 seconds. She walked to the school door and opened it. Inside, a young woman teacher was holding several children close to her. The teacher looked at Hannah with wide eyes. She saw the revolvers. She saw the smoke rising from them. She saw the calm expression on Hannah's face. "Take the children out the back," Hannah said. "Move east toward the river. There are fewer of them there. Who are you?" The teacher asked. "Someone who does not like bullies." Hannah turned and walked away. There were more soldiers to find. More people to save. Far above the city, in his command ship, Commander Rock watched her progress on his screens. He had assigned 20 soldiers to track her and report her movements. In the past 30 minutes, she had killed all 20. "Send more," he ordered. "Commander," said Bao, "we have already lost over 200 soldiers to this one human. Perhaps we should use heavier weapons. Destroy the entire area where she is operating." Rock shook his head. "No. If we destroy everything, we destroy resources we came here to take. We need the humans alive to work for us. We need their cities intact. Then what do we do?" Rock thought for a moment. "Send the elite guard, 10 of our best soldiers. They have faster reflexes and stronger armor. They will end this." The elite guard landed in Seoul 20 minutes later. They were the best warriors the Velker Empire had. Each one had killed thousands of enemies across dozens of planets. Their armor was made of the strongest metal in the galaxy. Their weapons could destroy tanks with a single shot. They spread out across the area where Hannah had been spotted. Their sensors searched for her. Their eyes watched every shadow. Hannah found them first. She was hiding in a destroyed building when she heard their heavy footsteps. These soldiers moved differently than the others. More careful, more skilled. She watched them through a broken window. Their armor was thicker. That would be a problem. She studied them for several minutes, looking for weak points. She noticed that the armor did not cover their necks completely. There was a small gap where the helmet met the bodysuit. A gap just big enough for a bullet. She smiled. The first elite guard died without seeing who killed him. The bullet entered the gap in his neck, and he fell like a cut tree. The other 9 turned toward the sound of the shot, but Hannah was already moving. She ran through the ruins like water flowing through cracks. When they shot at her, she was never where they aimed. When they tried to predict her movement, she changed direction. Their computers could not calculate her path. Their sensors could not lock onto her position. 3 more fell in the next 10 seconds. Then 2 more. Then 1 more. Now there were only 3 left. They stood back to back in the middle of the street, their weapons scanning in all directions. They were scared. For the first time in their lives, they felt what their victims always felt. Hannah stepped out from behind a fallen wall. She stood in plain sight, both revolvers pointed at them. The 3 elite guards raised their weapons. "You cannot kill all of us," one of them said. "You only have 2 shots before we fire." "I only need 2 shots," Hannah replied. "The question is, which 2 of you want to die first?" The aliens hesitated. They looked at each other. In that moment of hesitation, Hannah fired twice. 2 more bodies fell. The last one standing threw down his weapon and ran. Hannah let him go. She wanted him to tell the others what he had seen. Fear was a weapon too. In the command ship, Rock watched the battle in silence. His 4 hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard that the glass was cracking. "The elite guard has failed," Vec reported quietly. 9 dead. 1 fled. Bao was no longer laughing. His gray face was pale. "This is impossible. The elite guard has never lost a battle. Never." Rock stood up and walked closer to the main screen. He watched Hannah reload her revolvers once again. She was not tired. She was not afraid. She was exactly the same as she had been at the beginning. "Pull all forces back from our area," Rock commanded. "Commander?" Bao was confused. "We are retreating from one human?" "We are not retreating. We are changing strategy. She fights best alone in close combat. So we will not give her that fight. We will surround the area and wait. She cannot protect her people from a distance." It was a smart plan. Hana could kill soldiers up close, but she could not stop an army from surrounding the entire district. She could not be everywhere at once, but Rock had forgotten something important. Hana was not the only human who could fight. While she had been killing soldiers in the streets, her brother Taiho had been busy too. He had left the basement against her orders. He had found other people who wanted to fight. Former soldiers, police officers, ordinary men and women who refused to surrender. They had gathered in an old factory near the river. They had collected weapons from the fallen alien soldiers. They had studied how the weapons worked. Human minds were quick to learn, quick to adapt. Taiho stood before them now. There were maybe 200 people. Not many, but their eyes burned with the same fire that burned in Hana's eyes. "My sister is out there fighting alone," Taiho said. "She is buying us time. Time to organize. Time to prepare. The question is, what will we do with that time?" An old man stepped forward. He had been a general in the Korean army before retiring. "We cannot fight them head to head. Their technology is too advanced." "Then we do not fight them head to head," Taiho replied. "We fight like Hana fights, in the shadows, one by one. We make them afraid to walk our streets." The general nodded slowly. "Guerrilla warfare. Make the occupation too costly to maintain." Exactly. Outside the factory, the sounds of battle continued. Hana was still fighting, still killing, still refusing to give up. She did not know that her brother was building an army behind her. She did not know that her example had inspired hundreds of others to stand up. She only knew one thing. She would not stop until her people were safe. She would not stop until every last alien was gone from her city, her country, her planet. The Valkyr had come to Earth expecting easy prey. They had come with their perfect theory and their advanced weapons and their centuries of conquest. They had expected humans to panic, to surrender, to break. They had not expected Hana, and they definitely had not expected what was coming next. 10,000 light years away from Earth, in a ship made of black metal, the Valkyr War Council watched their invasion through giant screens. The room was dark and cold. 20 commanders sat around a long table made of glass. Their gray faces showed no emotion. They had done this many times before. Earth was just another planet. Humans were just another species. Commander Rock was the oldest and most powerful of them all. He had conquered 37 planets in his long life. He had killed millions of beings from dozens of different species. To him, war was simple math. You counted the weapons. You counted the soldiers. You made predictions. You won. "The invasion proceeds as expected," said a younger commander named Bao. He pointed at the screens. "Major cities are falling. Human military forces are responding, but our shields stop their weapons. Our energy rifles destroy their tanks and aircraft. It will be over soon." Rock nodded slowly. His forearms were folded across his chest. "And the population? Are they panicking?" "Yes, Commander. They run. They hide. They cry. They behave exactly as our models predicted." This was the beauty of the Valkyr battle theory. It was not just about weapons and soldiers. It was about understanding the enemy's mind. For 50 years, Valkyr scientists had studied Earth from hidden stations on the moon. They had watched humans fight each other. They had recorded every battle, every war, every conflict. They learned that humans were emotional creatures. Fear controlled them. When faced with a stronger enemy, they would panic first. Then their leaders would try to organize resistance. Then they would fight in large groups using standard military tactics. Then they would lose because Valkyr technology was hundreds of years more advanced. The theory had never failed. Not once. 20 species had fallen to the Valkyr using this exact method. Humans would be number 21, but Rock was old. He had lived long enough to know that numbers did not tell the whole story. He watched the screens carefully. Something felt different about this planet. He could not explain what it was. Just a feeling in his cold blood. "Show me the streets," he ordered. The screens changed. Now they showed the ground level. Valkyr soldiers marching through human cities. Humans running away. Buildings burning. Everything was going according to plan. Then one screen showed something strange. Woman was standing in a street in a city called Seoul. She was not running. She was not hiding. She was standing still, facing a group of Valkyr soldiers. She was wearing a worn jacket and her hair was tied back. On her hips were two small weapons that the computer could not identify. "What is that?" Rock asked. He leaned forward. Bal looked at the screen and laughed. "A human female with primitive weapons. She's probably confused. She will die in seconds." "Zoom in," Rock commanded. The camera moved closer. Now they could see the woman's face clearly. She was not confused. Her eyes were calm and steady. There was no fear in them. No panic. Only focus. "That is odd," said another commander named Vec. "Our data says humans show fear when facing superior forces. This one shows nothing." Rock watched the woman carefully. He had seen many warriors in his life. He had fought against the best soldiers from 37 planets. He knew what a real fighter looked like. This woman was a real fighter. "Send a warning to that unit," Rock said. "Tell them to be careful." Bal laughed again. "Careful? Against one human with antique weapons?" "Commander, our soldiers have energy shields. Her bullets will not even touch them." "Send the warning," Rock repeated. His voice was harder now, but it was too late. On the screen, the woman's hands moved. They moved so fast that the camera could barely follow them. In less than 1 second, both weapons were drawn and firing. The Valkyr soldiers had not even raised their rifles when the first 4 fell. The War Council watched in silence. 8 more shots. 8 more soldiers fell. In less than 3 seconds, all 12 Valkyr soldiers were on the ground, dead. Their shields had not helped them. Their advanced armor had not protected them. The woman stood alone in the street. Smoke rose from her weapons. She did not run. She did not celebrate. She simply reloaded her guns with calm, practiced hands. Then she walked forward into the city, looking for more enemies. Bal's laughter had stopped. His large black eyes were wide with something that looked like shock. "That is not possible. Our shields should have stopped those projectiles." Rock stood up from his seat. His forearms were shaking. Not with fear. With something else. Excitement? Concern? He was not sure. "Analyze what just happened," he ordered. "I want to know how she did that." The scientists worked quickly. They studied the footage frame by frame. They ran the data through their best computers. After several minutes, they had an answer. The projectiles were not normal, the head scientist explained. They were made of a rare metal found only on Earth. Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons and standard metals. This metal passed through. And the speed of her attack? Rock asked. The scientist hesitated. "Our data on human reaction times is based on average soldiers in standard combat situations. This human is not average. Her reaction speed is in the top 1% of any species we have ever studied. Perhaps higher." Rock sat back down. He understood now. The Vulcar battle theory was based on averages. It predicted how most humans would behave. But it had no data on humans like this woman. Humans who were exceptional. Humans who did not follow the normal patterns. Where is she now? Rock demanded. The screens searched the city. They found her quickly. She was moving through the streets with purpose. When she found Vulcar soldiers, she killed them. When they shot at her, she was not there. She moved like smoke, like shadow, like something their weapons could not touch. More reports came in. The unit she had destroyed was not alone. In the past 10 minutes, she had killed 47 Vulcar soldiers, all with those two simple weapons. This changes nothing, Bao said quickly. She is one human. We have millions of soldiers. She cannot kill us all. But other commanders were not so sure. They watched the screens with new eyes. If there was one human like this, how many others were there? How many more warriors were hiding among the panicking crowds? Rock made a decision. I want all battle data updated. Find every human who shows exceptional combat ability. We need to identify them before they become a problem. That will take time, Vex said. We have invaded hundreds of cities. Then work fast. The War Council continued to watch the screens. The invasion was still going well overall. Millions of humans had surrendered. Major military bases had been destroyed. But in Seoul, in one small area, a woman with 2 old revolvers was creating chaos. She was not following the theory. She was not behaving like the data said she should. And that made her dangerous. OK watched her move through the streets. She found a group of 10 soldiers and killed them all in 4 seconds. She found another group of 15 and did the same. Each time, she reloaded her weapons with the same calm hands. Each time, she walked forward without hesitation. What is she protecting? Rock asked quietly. What drives her to fight like this? No one had an answer. The Vulcar had studied human warfare for 50 years. They had analyzed battles and strategies and weapons. But they had never studied what made a human fight when there was no hope. They had never understood the power of protecting someone you love. They had made their theory perfect. They had tested it 1,000 times. But they had forgotten one simple truth. Some humans do not follow theories. Some humans make their own rules. And Hannah was one of them. The sky turned purple on the morning. Everything changed. Hannah stood on the rooftop of her small apartment building in Seoul and watched the massive ships break through the clouds. They were bigger than anything she had ever seen. Each ship was the size of a mountain, and there were hundreds of them. She was 32 years old. She had spent 10 years in the Korean Special Forces before leaving to take care of her younger brother. Now she worked at a small restaurant near the Han River. It was a quiet life. She thought her fighting days were over. Her brother Taiho ran up the stairs and joined her on the roof. He was 25, tall and thin, with worry in his eyes. He worked as a teacher at an elementary school nearby. The children loved him because he was kind and patient. What is that? Taiho asked. His voice was shaking. Hannah did not answer right away. She watched the ships hover in the sky like dark clouds waiting to release a storm. She had seen many terrible things in her years as a soldier. She had fought in places most people only read about in newspapers. But this was different. This was not human. The television in her apartment was still on. She could hear the news reporter speaking fast, almost screaming. Reports were coming from every city in the world. These ships were everywhere. Tokyo, New York, London, Paris, Mumbai, Cairo, everywhere. They are not from Earth, Hannah said finally. That is all I know. The first message came an hour later. Every screen in the world showed the same thing. A creature appeared. It was tall, maybe 8 feet, with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were large and black like deep holes that held no emotion. It spoke in a voice that sounded like metal scraping against stone. "We are the Velker Empire. Your planet is now under our control. Do not resist. Resistance will result in death. You have been studied. You have been measured. Your fate has been decided." The message ended. Then the attacks began. Hannah grabbed Taiho and pulled him down the stairs. They needed to move. She knew that rooftops would be easy targets. Her training came back to her like an old friend. Her body remembered what to do even when her mind was filled with fear. The streets were chaos. People were running and screaming. Cars crashed into each other as drivers tried to escape to nowhere. Hannah held her brother's hand tight and moved through the crowd. She needed to get to her apartment. She needed to get to the safe. Inside her small bedroom closet, hidden behind old clothes and boxes, there was a metal safe. She opened it with steady hands while Taiho watched. Inside were 2 revolvers. They were old. They had belonged to her grandfather. He had given them to her father, and her father had given them to her. They were not modern weapons. They did not use batteries or computers. They were simple machines that did one thing very well. "Why do you keep those?" Taiho asked. He had always wondered about them. "Because some things never fail," Hannah said. She loaded both revolvers with careful hands. The bullets were special. She had made them herself. Each one was perfect. Outside, the noise was getting louder. She heard strange sounds. Energy weapons. Explosions, the screams of people dying. Hannah looked at her brother. He was scared. She could see it in his eyes. But he was also strong. He had their mother's strength. Their mother had raised them alone after their father died. She had worked 3 jobs to give them a good life. She had never complained. She had never given up. "Listen to me," Hannah said. "I need you to stay here. Hide in the basement. Do not come out until I come back for you." "Where are you going?" Taiho grabbed her arm. "You cannot fight them. They have spaceships. They have weapons we have never seen. What can you do with 2 old guns?" Hannah smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "I am not going to fight their ships. I am going to fight them. There is a difference." She walked to the window and looked outside. The Velker soldiers were landing in the streets. They wore armor that looked like it was made of light. They carried weapons that glowed with blue energy. They moved in perfect lines, like machines. Hannah watched them carefully. She studied how they walked. She noticed how they held their weapons. She saw how they looked around. They were confident. They believed they had already won. That was their first mistake. The Velker had studied humans for 50 years before coming to Earth. They had watched every war. They had analyzed every battle. They had created computer programs that could predict human behavior. Their scientists said that humans were predictable. Humans always followed patterns. Humans always made the same mistakes. Their battle theory was perfect. They had tested it 1,000 times in their simulations. Every time, they won. Every time, humans lost. The theory said that humans would panic first, then organize, then fight in large groups, then lose. It was simple. It was clean. It was certain. But their theory had a problem. It was built on data from large battles. Armies against armies. Nations against nations. It understood how humans fought as groups. It did not understand how one human could fight alone. Hannah put on her old military jacket. It was worn and faded, but it still fit perfectly. She put one revolver in a holster on her right hip. She put the other in a holster on her left hip. She tied her long black hair back in a simple knot. Taiho stood in front of the door. "Please do not go. We can hide together. We can survive. Hannah put her hand on his face. Some people hide to survive. Others fight so that hiding is possible. I am the second kind. I always have been. She moved him aside gently. She opened the door. The sounds of war filled her ears. She could smell smoke and something else. Something strange. The smell of alien technology. She walked down the stairs and into the street. The Velker soldiers saw her immediately. They pointed their weapons at her. One of them spoke in that same metal voice. Human female. Surrender now. You cannot win. Hannah stopped walking. She stood in the middle of the street. The wind moved her jacket. She looked at the alien soldiers. There were 12 of them. Their weapons were pointed at her heart. She thought about her mother. She thought about her father. She thought about Taiho. She thought about all the people who were dying right now because these creatures believed they had the right to take whatever they wanted. Her hands moved to her revolvers. The aliens watched. They did not understand what they were seeing. Their battle theory had no data on this. Their computers had no prediction for a lone woman with old weapons standing against them in the street. Hannah smiled again. This time, the smile was not small. This time, it was the smile of a soldier who had found her purpose. The invasion had begun. But the real war was about to start.